and that's to preserve the educational efforts of the speakers. And speakers, if you'll just let me know when you're done, and I'll help you field any questions or that kind of thing if you get some questions. So without further ado, I know everybody's got a schedule to keep. So on behalf of KYTC Division of Planning, I'm honored to be able to introduce our first speaker this morning. And he's our Kentucky Transportation Cabinet State Highway Engineer. Mr. James Ballinger graduated from the University of Kentucky in '87 with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. He was a scholarship student and started immediately working in the D7 office in Lexington. And during his career, he's been a construction resident engineer, branch manager of construction and pre-construction. And he retired in December 2014. Congratulations. And he was the chief district engineer in District 7 when he retired. After a short break, he began working at the Kentucky Transportation Center at UK. And he was a research and training engineer. And then in September of 15, he started working for consultant Vaughan and Melton. And he was kind of an office lead over there. He rejoined the Transportation Cabinet in August of this year when he was appointed as a state highway engineer. And James lives with his family on his family farm with his wife Carrie and enjoy raising Hereford beef cattle and making sorghum molasses in the fall. So everybody please welcome Mr. James Ballinger. And just let me know, James, if you need to share your screen or just go ahead and start chatting.
Okay, sounds good, Jacob. Thank you for the introduction, and just want to thank you guys for inviting me to speak here on the opening this day of your planning conference. So I think this is really good, and I'm looking forward to this opportunity. Just a couple things. I don't have too much to cover, but I did right out of the gate, though. I did want to congratulate our new director of planning, Mikkel Pelfrey, on his recent appointment to that position, though, and looking forward to working with Mikkel and his leadership. I did get first to know Mikkel. He worked with us in District 7 a little bit. He came down some and got to know kind of the front lines of working in a highway district. That was the first time I met him, and I've always enjoyed working with Mikhail, and I'm really looking forward to him. I think he's going to do a great job. I do have a couple other staff announcements I would like to make this morning, and like to touch on those. Just this week, we've announced that Tim Layson is going to be the new director of the Division of Highway Design, and I think that's going to be he's going to be a good fit for that position, and I think that there's a lot of overlap and a lot of with planning and design, so I think that's going to be an important position. I think he's going to do a good job working with you guys on that, so looking forward to that. We had some recent retirements, and I would like to mention John Wilcoxon. Recently retired from the cabinet as one of the assistant state highway engineers for project delivery and preservation. We have not filled that position yet, but I did want to mention in the meeting here that Ken Sperry, a lot of folks know Ken. He retired from the cabinet a few years ago, and he's back now. He'd worked in private as well. He's handling kind of our maintenance and our materials divisions, though, if you have any questions or anything related to maintenance or materials. And Jason Sawala is another assistant state highway engineer that's going to be handling our traffic and equipment division. So I know there's sometimes questions related to some of the traffic count equipment and things like that potentially out there, or anything related to the division of traffic, though. So I wanted to let you guys know that. And ultimately, we will be getting that position filled, though. But in the meantime, though, those guys are going to be handling any duties in those two areas that John was handling. Next, I'd like to mention and congratulate the Division of Planning on having a new guidance manual. I think that's an exciting event that we had recently. That was I think signed and that was approved. And from what I understand, I think that was the oldest policy manual we had in the Department of Highways. Is what I was told. So I think it was about time for an upgrade and update on the planning policy guidance manual. I think that's really good, though, and I understand a lot of hard work went into that. I saw part of the presentation related to that, though, and I spent a lot of time working on that. Much needed refresh, and so I think that's really good, though. I think that's great. A couple other things I wanted to touch on, though, I guess related to to my role, and as Jacob described, I had worked, I guess, in District 7 my whole career before I retired, and started out in construction, and then I worked in the project development area there for about 8 years, and that's when I got to work with Mikkel a little bit and got to know him. And during that time, I worked a lot in planning. I was responsible for that area, and at that time, I got to really understand the value that planning brings to all of our processes. Though I really enjoyed my time getting to interact with the public, with the local officials, and I think that I really saw the value. And one of the examples, I guess, that I that I saw of the value of planning, it's on a lot of the study that you guys do, and just recently. One of the first things I did when I got back to the cabinet, though, I had a conversation with Earl Coffey. He's the city engineer over at Danville, Kentucky. And one of the first things he did, he started talking about a small urban area study that planning had conducted back in, I think it was 2000 and, like 2012 through 14. And he referenced, some the recommendations from that planning study, and was talking about some of the projects that they would like to move forward with. So there is a huge amount of value, though, that the division of planning and the consultants that are working in planning that you bring to the table, though. And we always talk about the proverbial studies that might sit on the shelf, but I don't think that's the case from my perspective at all. I can remember many times in District 7, we had a room with those planning studies where we stored them. And we were constantly going to those as we were working on our highway plan projects, though, and working on our recommendations for the highway plan. We were constantly going in there, and we were saying, what did the planning study show? What was the recommendations? What did the local officials think about it? What was the projected ADT from the planning study? So we were constantly doing that. And I was looking just last night on the planning website for some of that information, though, and those are still out there on the website. And whenever I was in the consulting industry, is we scoured everything we could to try to find those planning studies. Though, as we were, we would be putting in a proposal for a design job somewhere, but that's one of the historical record searches that we did. We wanted to understand what was the cabinet's recommendations, what was the public input to help us better craft a response for a proposal. So those things are looked at. Those things are very valuable. And I think one thing that you guys do in that area, though, in the planning, it's not just the studies, it's not just the traffic counts, it's not, a lot of that's mechanical things that you do. But I think that the area of planning is you guys provide a great deal of leadership, I think, working with the local officials, whether you're working with, your local county officials, working through the area development districts, the MPOs that you work with, industry, whoever it may be, stakeholders, groups out there, is you'll gain a lot of information, but you also share a lot of information back with them to provide leadership on how we can better provide mobility and safety for our citizens in our communities. Though I think that's an extremely valuable service, and what you guys provide is extremely valuable. And I've always really enjoyed that. I know Secretary Grazie in a moment is going to talk about bike and ped, and that's one thing locally, though, that I always challenged our planning guys to say, look, everybody wants to include bike and ped facilities and these investments in our infrastructure, though. What I wanted our planning guys to do was to work with the local officials to make sure that they had a good plan, a good local plan, and if they had one, if they knew what they were the desires of the local community was with the connectivity or whatever it was, if it was shared use paths or whatever the case may be. Then we came along with a transportation improvement project, though. It was much easier to make that investment in the project, so, and make that investment to include a shared use path or whatever, if that was a part of the local plan. And so I continually, I said, you guys are leaders out here. You guys understand how these things can work. You understand the value of these things, so work with your local officials. I think that's really important to do. And again, I mentioned earlier to kind of close around here, though, the philosophy of mobility and safety. And I think that early on though, you guys you all are the ones that are helping us to craft through our district, our plans that we have through the shift process, district transportation plans, whatever that is, and what projects we're going to recommend. You guys are on the front end of that, of trying to determine what projects that we need to have to provide that mobility and safety. And it's my opinion though that every decision that we make in transportation, Department of Highways, every action that we take, every dollar we spend, though, is that it needs to be focused against the backdrop of, are we providing mobility and safety for the citizens of the Commonwealth of Kentucky? And if every decision, every investment we make, if we can say answer yes, we are doing those two things, though, I think we know we're making a good investment. So I think that's kind of my measuring sticks of what I like to use, though. Are we providing and improving that mobility and that safety? And it's not just mobility for cars, though. It's for pedestrians, too, though. It's for bicycles. It's all those things. I like a balanced approach to providing mobility. And so that's my philosophy. And I learned that philosophy, honestly, from the guys like Calvin Grayson. We lost Calvin this year. He was a lot of you guys had the good fortune to get to meet him, I'm sure, along the way or hear about him. But he was a giant when it came to planning, and he was the guy that kind of helped shift the focus from being okay, let's only look at automobiles and highways and things like that, to let's look at all modes of transportation, though, and the interconnection between those and how it all works together as a system. And Calvin was the leader in that area, and so I've tried to always, every chance I had, to listen and learn from him. And we want to carry those philosophies forward into the future, though, to provide that mobility and safety. I think it's the most important thing that we can do. So, with that, I'll go ahead and close out. I appreciate the opportunity again to speak. Have a great session here. And if you have any questions, though, just give me a shout, and I'll be happy to try to answer those. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ballinger. And if anybody's got any questions, like I say, put them in the chat box, or we can field those as necessary. And I know Secretary Gray's got something he's got to get to in a few minutes, but it's my honor again to intro him. I read a bio for him last time, and this time he said just intro me this way. He gave me a few things to say. So it says, Jim brings private sector business experience as well as experience as being an elected official as the mayor of Lexington for 8 years, and he's currently appointed the secretary of KYTC. So everybody, please welcome Jim Gray again. Thanks, Jim, for being on.
Hey, Jacob, thank you. Thanks so much, and glad you're in the control tower again. We all feel safer. That's great. Well, it looks like you had oh my goodness, you got 94 folks on the call today, on the Zoom call. So that's great. That's great. Well, hello to everybody. I want to say right out of the gate, thanks again to James Ballinger for joining us. James has provided, right out of the gate, he's provided great leadership. I got to know James when I was mayor of Lexington, and James was District 7 chief engineer, and I loved working with him. And he always, I think he said it earlier, the value of planning, just it's almost cliche to say it cannot be understated or underestimated. It's just enormously important in any endeavor, and it's particularly important here. I had a wise counselor one time, a consultant who helped us in our business. He was an Indian fella from Delhi, and he was brilliant, and he had wonderful sayings that he taught my brother and me when we were really young. After our father passed away, we picked up the business. We went through struggling times, but one of the things he said about planning, I'll never forget. He said, a good plan is like a roadmap, and the journey is the safest when the roadmap is the clearest. Of course, this was before Google, okay? So we still knew what roadmaps were in paper. But I think it really applies to everything we do. It applies, of course, to the technical aspects of what we're doing as a cabinet, as a Department of Highways in that sense, but it applies organizationally as well. And I want to thank James Ballinger for, again, right out of the gate, he and working together with Mike Hancock and his team at Department of Highways is looking at resurrecting or and elevating our planning system for the organization. Some would call it strategic planning or operations planning, but we're looking at that. And one of the benefits of that is that we get to see cross-functional opportunities, cross-functionally, what each of us is doing. And each division in the department, for example. And over time, that gives us alignment, opportunities for improvement, and that's healthy for any organization. So I just wanted to say that to punctuate and to encourage the work that all of you are doing, because it's a real inspiration. I learn every day in this role, in this job. It's been incredibly inspiring to see the remarkable talent across the cabinet and through the consultants and all of those that we're aligned with in functions across the state. And I see that this agenda today really represents that. It's a robust agenda, and everything on it's important. And I want to say that because I know that sometimes folks hang on every word that maybe a secretary or a deputy secretary or a state highway engineer says, and everything on here is relevant and important. However, I'm going to have an opportunity today to illuminate, perhaps is the best word to describe it, what Bernadette DuPont is going to be talking about, and that's bicycling in Kentucky. And I want to put that in the context, and I'm going to tell this story quickly. I want to put it in the context of my being job of mayor in Lexington. It's all about, today's economy is all about quality of life. And because people choose where they're going to live today more than they ever have in the past. It used to be that people moved to where the jobs were. And I think, for example, of IBM in Lexington. When it came to Lexington, when it created its typewriter division, long ago past, today printers, of course, with Lexmark. But when it came to Lexington, when it moved to Lexington and announced that in the 1950s, a lot of people moved to IBM in Lexington to work with that company. But today there's a different dynamic. And I have some sense of this because I've worked in doing this all my life. Recruiting of manufacturing businesses to Kentucky and other states. Well, today, it's different. People don't move to where the jobs are. The jobs move to where the people are. And people are living and working where they find a high quality of life. And a great example of that is a story that I got from Daniel Walker, who's the bike ped coordinator. I don't think Daniel's is actually on the program with Bernadette, but he works with Bernadette from here in the cabinet. New role since December. Well, Daniel moved to Frankfort, he told me, because of the quality of life in Frankfort, because he could either walk or bike to his job every day. Well, I discovered something like that in a real clear way when I was mayor of Lexington. I was invited by the Knight Foundation, which is a foundation that helps cities across the country. I was invited along with 4 other mayors to visit Copenhagen in Denmark. And we were told, the 4 mayors were told that when we got there, we would only be able to travel around on a bicycle. Well, the first day we got there, it was pouring down rain, and we had to travel around on the bicycle. Fortunately, I had rain gear, but I was wearing blue jeans, and they were soaked. And anyhow, the next few days when we went to meetings, we only traveled on bicycle. And I will tell you that it was good that we landed on a Sunday because the traffic wasn't so busy. But on Monday morning, it was a traffic jam of bicycles outside the hotel getting to our next meeting. Now, the reason I share that story is that that's hard to believe, isn't it? For many of us, it's hard to believe in the U.S., in the States. Well, they started this movement, this migration to transportation through bicycling almost 50 years ago. They had images and pictures of traffic jams and so forth, and they started this migration. I'm not suggesting at all, and please don't report that I ever would have said this, that we're going to migrate over to everybody or a lot of folks commuting with bikes, but more people are. And that all circles back to this notion of quality of life, economic growth and vitality, and how it's much more of an influence today. So these alternative modes of transportation, much more of an influence today on our economy than it ever has been before, at least in my view. So I probably waxed on there for a little bit more than I should have, Jacob, because I know that I'm very anxious to hear what Bernadette has to say. And I do plan to, after a transportation budget review committee meeting at 10 o'clock, I'm hoping to rejoin you guys. So thanks very much. And John Moore and all the team that, Mikhail, everybody that worked on this planning for this event today, thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Secretary Gray. It's a good story. Cool story.
Well, I'll tell you, I was soaking wet on the first day.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, thanks for the segue to our next speaker is a FHWA transportation specialist for the Kentucky division. Miss Bernadette DuPont graduated from UK with a bachelor's degree in communication and civil engineering and a master's degree in civil engineering. And also studied McGill University. Besides English, she can speak bits and pieces of Spanish, Arabic, and French. I thought that was kind of cool. She works for FHWA's Kentucky division, like I said. And please welcome Miss Bernadette DuPont. And let's see, Bernadette, you said a couple other speakers. I need to unmute here. And let me know if you can share your screen okay.
I am.
Okay, Daniel Walker and Darren Grenfell.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us. Thank you, Secretary Gray. I've known you a long time since I worked for you in the payroll department while I was going to engineering school. So it's very nice to get to work with you in multiple capacities. Today, we're going to be talking about bicycling in Kentucky. And if you recognize this picture, it's from right beside the Capitol in Frankfort. And each time I do a presentation, I like to talk to you about whatever the day is. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but today is actually October 21st, Apple Day. And I don't know if you've ever heard of it before. I'm trying to get the slides to move forward. There you go. Apple Day started in London, England in 1990, so it's pretty new. And just a couple of facts about apple trees. It takes 5 years before they can begin producing apples. They can usually produce about 800 pounds of apples, and they live for over 100 years. And I didn't know this, but they're part of the rose family. And to make 1 gallon of apple cider, and this is all because this is a fall picture, you know, there's 30 apples to make 1 gallon of apple cider. And out of the 8,000 apple varieties, 2,500 are available in the U.S., but only one's native to the U.S., and that's the crab apple. And I didn't know that there is a Malus domestica phobia as a fear of apples. So that's enough about today. But as Secretary Gray mentioned, there's been an interest in biking for a long time, but with COVID-19, it has increased worldwide. And I'm showing you a picture right now, the ambassador to the Kingdom of the Netherlands. He did a great presentation, and if you're interested, I put all the links to everything I talk about is on the screen somewhere. So you can use this as a reference later. But this video is maybe 2 hours long, and it's a conference that everybody was having, and it's a way to, emulate the Netherlands because they're known as a cycling nation. If you think about our parking lots, which are full of cars, this is a parking lot in the Netherlands. There's 7 million Dutch residents, 25 million bikes, and 45% of the people arrive at the train station by bike. 26% of all the trips are taken by bike. just to give you an idea of the whole world, there's a couple of different agencies I'm going to highlight here, but they rank the most bike-friendly cities in the world for 2019. This is the most recent data. Copenhagen, Denmark is number 1. Amsterdam has the next 2 cities, but if you notice, nowhere on there is the United States. The closest we get is North America is in Canada, Vancouver, Canada, and Montreal. Now, this group that did this, they're the people who designed bicycling facilities. And the factors that they used to make this determination were safety, traffic, bike share programs, and infrastructure. Now, if you go to the next group, which is Koya, it's a German insurance company, and they insure bicycles as well. But they take factors such as crime and safety. So if your bike is stolen, that goes against, the safety factor, the infrastructure and sharing, and the number of events that you have. Notice that the Netherlands jumped to number 1 there and number 5. But Montreal, Canada is still the only one on the list from North America. So we need to do better in the United States. Now, if we're looking at the USA's most bike-friendly cities, this is most recent from September of this year. Portland, Oregon is number 1. And if you look again at the bottom of the screen, there's a link showing you where you can see all the rankings for all the cities. Kentucky is not on the list. We need to do better. And a lot of this information has a lot of different factors. If you're looking at, there's a walkscore.com, which is an interesting website if you want to go to that. The percentage of people biking to work, the National Transportation Safety Administration's fatality rate, the miles of protected bike lanes, and of course, they use the 2008 U.S. Census Commodity Survey on household income. So part of the information from the Census Bureau, it shows that 1 in 200 Americans, 0.5% bike to work. And Portland, Oregon had the highest percentage at 5.3%. Now, just to give you an idea, there's a lot of cities around the world that have superhighways just for bicyclists. London, England, which is number 62 on the Koya list, and I put them up there because these were the pictures that were readily available, just to give you an idea, though, about what the superhighway looks like. So I would like to introduce now Darren Grenfell. He is our bicycle and pedestrian coordinator. He's pretty new to this thing, and I'll let him introduce federal highway policy. Darren?
Yes, good morning. I am the pavement materials engineer here in the Kentucky division. I've been here for about 11 years. I recently inherited the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator position and program. I'm excited about it. I've been an enthusiast of bike walk. I bike to work. I biked today. I'm going to Midway and biking. And so I fit in quite well with FHWA and the U.S. Department of Transportation's strong value and emphasis to balance modes of transportation, particularly bicyclists and pedestrians, to make them safe, comfortable, and for all ages and all abilities. FHWA supports these policies with lots of different funding, and as a 30-year veteran of FHWA, any city or county that would like to get a project through the difficult challenge of funding and to construction, I'd be glad to help.
Well, thank you, Darren. And then we'll move on to introducing Daniel Walker. He's a statewide bicycle and pedestrian facility coordinator, and he's going to talk to you about the cabinet's policy. Daniel?
Hey, I'm Daniel Walker. I took the job in December of 2019, and KYTC will consider the incorporation of pedestrian and bicycling facilities on all new or reconstructed state-maintained roadways in existing and planned urban and suburban areas. We have a lot of community plans, and they can range from very small communities like, let's say, Mayfield, or I'm trying to think of one out in eastern Kentucky. Prestonsburg has a lot of stuff going on down there. And, this can help us consider infrastructure that could be a possibility in these communities. It's not just your cities of Lexington or Louisville. It can enhance the holistic quality of life and, small communities just as much as larger communities.
Oh, thank you. Now, of course, when you want to implement these structures, you have to think about the funding, and that's always a big thing. If you go back 2 slides to the Federal Highway website, there's a link at the bottom, and that is a great website. Recently, we've just come up with a safety audit for bicycle and pedestrians manual. That'll be very helpful to you if you're interested in it. And there's a table that's 2 pages long, if you scroll through, showing you all the different types of funding. It's not just federal highway and FDA funding. It is any available funding for bike ped projects. But the ones that I want to focus on today, the first batch there, the green batch, that's they're all competitive programs, and that's the congestion mitigation and air quality, or refer to it as CMAQ funding, surface transportation block grant funding. And there's 2 groups under that, Safe Routes to School, which is an older program, but the cabinet still has money that we can be using, and transportation alternatives. So, and then of course the recreational trail program, which kind of just screams out bike ped. And then of course we have something that is new to the cabinet, and it's not actually, it's a future local road safety plan, but the Highway Safety Improvement Program. Right now the cabinet picks all the projects. In the future, they're planning to let anybody who'd like to apply, fill out an application, can submit for a project. So that'll be something to look forward to. And then of course, the National Highway Program, you can use funding out of there to pay for bike peds. And of course, planning funds, and we're all planners, but you can use those funds for developing plans, for data collection, such as getting counts and monitoring and mapping, some safety programs and training. So, make good use of all the money. When we're talking about federal highways, we always have a comprehensive approach, and they call it the 5 E's. We're talking about engineering, the design and construction of the bike ped facilities, education, where we not only teach the public, but we teach the bicyclists, the pedestrians, and the motorists, and we have enforcement. We want to ensure that the traffic laws and rules are followed. We talk about encouragement, providing incentives for people to do the right thing, and evaluation. So we want to ensure that we achieve the outcomes we were going for. So we're going to focus today on education, and we're going to start with data. That's the one thing that we can always count on, having good data. So the United Health Foundation came out with this data in January of this year. They based it on multiple categories: behaviors, community and environment, public and health policies, clinical care, and health outcomes. And it was shocking and sad to see that Kentucky is one of the least healthy states in the nation. So we were 43rd out of 50 states. And if you want to get the particulars on all of those different states, it's down there at the bottom, the website. So we have to do better, because if you're looking at more data, Kentucky is the lowest. We are 50 out of 50 for most number of cancer deaths. We have 233 people per 100,000 population, and that's just way too many. We are last again for physical activity. We are very inactive. That means that 32.4% of the adults in our community, in our state, are not active. We are 49th out of 50 for smoking. That means 30% was what we used to have in 2012, and it is getting better. In 2019, we're only at 23%, which shows that it's declining, but we're still 49th out of 50. Obesity, which has increased significantly since 1990. We were at 12% obesity. Now our state is 36.6% obese. And that's what puts us at 46 out of 50. Our drug deaths, now this was shocking, 96% increase in 10 years. So 32 people out of every 100,000 people, that's a huge amount of people dying, and that's a shame. Diabetes, we're 44 out of 50. That means 13.7% of the adults have diabetes. And cardiovascular deaths, 42 out of 50. So that's 301 out of every 100,000 population. So one of the ways to do that is to increase physical activity. If you look at all these different things, keeping busy is a good way to do it, keeping active. Now, I'm going to let Daniel talk to you about this screen, because the data all comes from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. So Daniel?
We have multi-use paths. We have 179. and there are 90 miles of these multi-use paths. But these are only captured inside the right-of-way of state routes. Then we have rails to trails, multi-purpose, which are a lot of in eastern Kentucky, Prestonsburg area specifically. There are 28 and 63 miles, and there's still a lot of work to be done. They're still trying to build more and more and more to increase tourism down there. And then we have a ton of United States bicycle routes. There's 856 miles of USBRS, and there are 5 of them through our state. And I believe we're one of the top states for United States bicycle routes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So let's talk about those rails to trails then. They're multi-purpose paths, and as Daniel pointed out, we have 28 of those in Kentucky. And if you go to the link that's provided on the screen, that tells you exactly which ones were which. What I want to point out to you, though, is that the National Trail System Act allow the railroads to either abandon the railroads or to bank them for future use. So you need to make sure which ones you have. You know, if they're banking them, they can take them over again. So when you're thinking about investing in those routes, you know, you might want to talk to the railroad and see exactly what's going on. And then, of course, they would have to file a notice of interim trail use, so it wouldn't be a surprise. But that Trails link, the Rails to Trails Conservancy, are the ones that provide the data and the locations for all the ones in Kentucky. And then also the United States bicycle routes. When Daniel said that we had 5 different routes, we have 856 miles, which makes us the 5th in the nation for most number of mileage. We recently added 2 new routes, and that was in 2018. And the first one is Bike Route 21, was a 265-mile route. And what it does is it follows the Boone Trace established by Daniel Boone in 1775. It goes all the way from the Ohio River in Mason County, through the Bluegrass, and down to Cumberland Gap, Tennessee. And then our second trail was the Bike Route was 23. It has a 109-mile route, and it connects Cave region of Kentucky to southwestern Kentucky and Mammoth Cave. So those are pretty cool. But those are designated by AASHTO. And nationwide, we have 13,470 miles, which makes us 5th in the nation with most number of miles. And it's 6% of the total nation's bicycling trails. Now, we're talking about data. So we've talked about our health. We've talked about the number that we have in Kentucky. Here's a national statistic from Federal Highways. This came out in August 19th this year. And if you notice, between 2009 and 2018, bike fatalities have increased 36%. That's why this educational component is so important. So if you're looking at the numbers, 2009 we had 628 bike fatalities, and in 2018 we had 857 bike fatalities. So we need to get that number back down. Now, this is pretty exciting here, and I want to give credit to the Kentucky Transportation Center. You know, there's transportation centers throughout the country, and we're lucky enough to have one in Kentucky, and it's housed in the University of Kentucky. And this data is not published yet as of last week. I don't know if it's been published this week, but this is fresh, hot off the press for you guys. Notice that the Kentucky and all our roads have had 362 crashes. 5 of those have been fatal. 5 people were killed. But we had 223 injury crashes as well, and that included 228 people. Now, what that can include is, you know, if there's 2 people riding the bike, you might have your child on the back. Could be a bystander sitting by, but it was because of this injury. Now, notice that there's also a difference between all roads and public roads. The public roads don't include the crashes or accidents, crashes that happen in parking lots or other private property. So that's what the difference in the numbers are there. Now, if you're looking at our MPO areas, this data is, you know, the same report. But if you notice, Bowling Green had 14 bike crashes. And if you compare that to Louisville with 136, that's a lot. But the difference is, perhaps, now I'm not sure about this, but Louisville is a big biking community, and they have a lot more bikers and a lot bigger population. But either way, these numbers are too many. We shouldn't have any of these crashes. So we want to do better. Now, the second thing of our education, we talked about providing data. Then you have to determine who your audience is that you want to share this data with. So on opportunities to share that data. So if we're talking about new drivers, you might want to go to the driver education program or driver testing. You can leave brochures out. You just have to work with your local agencies. College students, if you're in a college community, there's a campus newspaper and there's lots of biking groups. And of course, the motorist. And if they're in traffic school, you've got a captive audience. You might want to share some information there. And I know the state police will be happy to help to let you share some of that information. At least the ones I've talked to have been. And of course, your neighbors. You don't want people driving like crazy through your neighborhood. You have, you're out as a pedestrian, or your children are playing, or your animals are out. And then, of course, if you notice, the top two pictures came out of my neighborhood. That's the new green pathways. And I'll let Darren Grenfell tell you about that. Darren?
Yeah, so the manual on uniform traffic control devices has the best and most recommended safe striping. And these are some good pictures representing some of the striping you can use for bicycle routes. Kudos to State Highway Engineer Ballinger and Lexington and Mayor Gray and now Secretary Gray, using some of these types of striping in Lexington, for example. I want to bring attention to the picture on the bottom. That is fairly new. It's called the bicycle box, and it puts the bicyclists out in front to make sure that there's visibility with the cars, and then gives them a safe place to make a left turn if they do need to make a left turn movement in an intersection. Anyway, good resources out there in the MUTCD, and taking into account these target audiences to make sure we're doing the best we can to provide safe bicycling.
Thank you, Darren. And again, another group that we want to talk about are our actual bikers. And there's a great way to get a contact with them. There's a national bike club called the Wheelmen. You might have heard of them. The local bike clubs, there's one in Lexington, or the Lexington area, called the Bluegrass Cycling Club. The Louisville Bicycling Club used to be called formerly the Louisville Wheelmen. There's a lot of local events that go on. These are things you don't know about if you're not in the bicycling community, but hopefully more people will be getting into that. The Bourbon and the Bluegrass in Owensboro was just recently happened. Bikes and Beers in Cincinnati happened October 16th. Lexington has a Horsey 100. The Red River Rally is October 3rd. That just occurred. And then, of course, in your local bike shops, they're always happy to have some new brochures or events or educational components to share. So there's things going on all over the state. And then our third component of education, so far we've talked about show them the data, figure out who your audience is, and now you want to have effective message delivery. So you want to prioritize your messages. And Darren, you want to talk about some of these things.
Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity for giving effective messages, and they're really important for safety. These include prioritizing the message, signing, striping, and then also the programs, making sure that education is getting the information out about how to be safe as bicyclists and pedestrians, the helmet use program, and I think Kentucky does a really great job on the Share the Road program sign. That's the bottom right, and I think people are getting familiar with it. And then another thing Kentucky's been doing great with is looking at the planning aspects of road diets, and then integrating those road diets into projects, 4 lanes to 3 lanes, for example. We've got one of those here in Frankfort, and I know Lexington, where I also live, is doing a great job in that area.
Thank you. And part of delivering an effective message is being innovative and thinking outside the box. And this is the newest thing that Lexington has. If you notice, this is a great website that they have, because the first thing on the screen is Discover the Legacy Trail. That is a huge greenway trail that connects downtown Lexington to the Kentucky Horse Park. But they have a new interactive map, which is awesome. If you have not had a chance to look at it, you might want to do that because the website was there to help you. But it has multiple layers, and you can turn it on. And if you look, I had clicked on one of the links there. It shows the type of roadway, the facility type, the length of miles, and you can select all the different things that you're interested in. You want to have the Fix-It station, bike shops. It's a very useful tool if you're biking. Another effective message delivery would be use marketing. Tourism and economic development. If you want people to invest in biking, you got to show them where they benefit. So economic development is a good one. If you can say you're a bike-friendly city, that attracts tourism. It also, one of the things that Syed in Evansville had told me once was that they had a conference and an insurance company had told them that they might lose a project if their health rates weren't better, and a company didn't want to move to a certain area because the insurance would cost them more because people weren't healthy. That's something we need to improve on in Kentucky. So thanks for that information, Sad. So the League of American Bicyclists has an annual listing of people that they get an award. Once an award is given to a city, it holds the award title for 4 years, but it's an application process, and you have to show all the different things that you do. So they're going to be looking at if you have complete streets policies, you have safe passing laws, you have a bike plan, if 2% or more federal money spent on bike ped projects, and if you have a bicycle safety emphasis area. And if you're thinking that statewide, that would be in our Highway Safety Improvement Program. And if you notice here, this is what their leagues, their bicycle-friendly cities. Kentucky is 43rd again. But if you notice, and the bottom of my screen is not showing, Lexington has a bronze and Louisville is a silver. So congratulations to both of those cities for their achievements. Now, you can get these different levels. You can be platinum, which is what we should strive for, gold, silver, or bronze. But when we're talking about, hey, this is a marketing tool, making your effective message, you can say, my city is a bike-friendly city. That will attract economic development because the factories will want to come here, the insurance will be less, and this is something that would be your encouragement or your enticement, incentive. Now, if you're interested in doing that, the Kentucky Trail Towns, the Kentucky Office of Adventure Tourism has a guide for communities, and it's called Kentucky Trail Towns, and it's designed to help the leaders take advantage of the economic opportunities brought by the attraction of trails and rivers. It's not a standalone community thing. It has to be linked through trails. It can be hiking trails, water trails, or rail trails. But if you're interested to learning about that, that link to that guide is at the bottom. And of course, if you get started now, you can be in time for sharing some information or participating in the League of American Bicyclists has a National Bike Summit. This year it's going to be in February, and it's going to go February 20th through March 3rd. It's going to be virtual, so a lot more people can attend. And the theme this year is Bikes Are Vehicle for Change. And that would get you geared up for the next big event, which is May, which is the National Biking Month. So just to summarize what we've talked about, we talked about sharing the data, who the audience is who will be receptive to receiving that data, and providing an effective message delivery. So do you have any questions for myself, for Daniel, or for Darren? Now would be the time to ask.
Hey, Bernadette, I see one in the chat box from Scott Thompson. And a great job, by the way, on the presentation. Good presentation. It says, glad we're having the conversation about improving bicycle pedestrian safety and infrastructure in our state. Is there any current efforts to change the language regarding inclusion of bicycle and ped facilities from will consider to shall include?
Okay, that has to do with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet's policy that was established many years ago. And I don't know, Daniel, do you have any insight into that?
I do not. That is a good question from Scott, though. I don't know where that stands. I know our policy is pretty old regarding bike ped. I want to say it's 2002.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I think it is. We did meet with some consultants about updating it, but that was, I believe it was last January.
Well, we're doing a lot better than a lot of areas because they wrote it into policy that yes, we will consider bike ped on all our projects. Doesn't mean they have to put them on. They have to see if they're feasible and if it's going to be working. So it is something we can consider and strive for in the future. That's a good question. Thank you. Anybody
Yeah.
else?
Thank you, guys. I think that's all I see there. Good,
Okay, thank you
congratulations.
very much.
And I know Daniel Walker's, he's done a presentation for some of the area development districts that I've seen, and he's got a good presentation too. It goes into sidewalk, different ramp type things and all that. So he's good. He's a good resource for us.
Yeah, if you guys need anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, thank you, guys. We're a little bit behind schedule. It's 9:53, but we'll try to get this next topic in. And if we have to push the break back a few minutes, maybe we kind of told the statewide corridor plan guys 45 minutes to an hour to give us a little flexibility. But
And our presentation is like a half hour long
Okay,
at
good.
max. So like shift is much more important. So
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so thanks for your flexibility there, Steve. And then, John Moore was on here originally, but I think he gave all his updates to Mikhail. So let me, I'll read Mikhail's bio one more time. I think I read it at the last meeting, but he lost his video, so I'll read it again for him. Mr. Mikhail Pelfrey joined KYTC in 2006 for rural and municipal aid, and he worked 5 years in the consulting industry. 2011, he joined planning, and he ended up being the corridor team lead for strategic studies. And in 2018, he was the branch manager of modal programs. 2019, he was the assistant director. And 2020, this year, he was named director. So he's moving on up. Mikhail is a proud graduate of UK, where he received a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, and he lives in Lexington with his wife Sagan and boys Lyndon and Charleston. So please welcome Mr. Mikhail Pelfrey.
Thanks, Jacob. Hope y'all can hear me. I want to thank both James and Secretary Gray for the opening comments this morning. I didn't know James was going to say that, but I've known James, like he mentioned, since 2006, back since he was the pre-construction branch manager in District 7. His accomplishments are well known to us all. But he's also a fantastic kind of people person. I know personally, I was a graduate of ALA, and I graduated ALA in 2011. My mom wanted to come see me graduate. I don't know how she got there. She's not very good with directions, but she made it there probably a little bit late. But James was there, probably supporting somebody from District 7. I don't remember who, but he was kind enough to let my mom follow him all the way back to Lexington. And once she got back to the airport, she knew where she was. But we know about James's accomplishments as a civil engineer and what he's done for the state of Kentucky. But he's also, I just wanted to let everybody know, he's also a fantastic people person. He's very down to earth, and he's always going to have our interests at heart. I've got two things to talk about today. The first one is on the agenda is the planning guidance manual that James mentioned. If you were at the virtual partnering conference this year, you may have seen the presentation that was done. Hopefully, with us, our group here, all planners, and the ads and the MPOs. Hopefully, it was a session that you might have attended. But James mentioned, it hadn't been updated since 1991. That's probably before some of y'all in this audience were even born. So it's 28, 29 years old. I'd like to thank my predecessor, Amanda Spencer. She kind of got this effort off the ground. So a lot of the work was done before she departed us, unfortunately, in January. HMB was the consultant that did that for us. Now our Deputy Secretary Mike Hancock, along with Brad Johnson, and also we give some special thanks to our in-house project manager Stephen DeWitt, who was very instrumental, had a monumental task of organizing all the tasks and getting all the groups together to be able to complete that. We had 18. I know some people prefer the hard copies. We had 18 hard copies of that printed and bound. I know I received my 6 hard copies last week in the Division of Planning for each one of the 6 branches. There are also 12 copies that are going to go out to each one of the districts. It's my understanding in talking to Brad Webb that you all should be receiving those shortly if you haven't already received them already. But it's also available online. I'm hoping to see if I can share my screen real quick. It's relatively easy to find. If the ads and NPOs, or even if our in-house personnel would rather have the electronic version, I want to show you how to get to that real quick. So if you go online, you can go as simple as Google, and just type in KYTC. If my keyboard will work, planning guidance manual. It should be the very first option that pops up. You can just click on it, and this is where all of our guidance manuals for all of KYTC are listed. But you can scroll down, and there you see planning. You can click on it, and it should be able, and it's about 300 pages long, but ultimately it will load, and you'll be able to more or less read it electronically. Hoping it was going to load a little bit quicker than this. But it is 300 pages. It's a policy-based manual. So if there are aspects of your job you're wanting to be able to research and look into, you can. There's a table of contents both at the top that you can click on, and it will be able to take you to your applicable section. I was going to try to just show you real quick if it would load, but I don't want to take too much. I don't want to take too much time. Oh, here it is. So as you can see, this was just issued last month, September 2020, and here are your table of contents. You can scroll on this electronically, and I was just going to pull up Shift real quick, and if you click on Shift, it will take you to the applicable pages, starting on page 230 for the Shift program. So that's available online. It's a great resource for everybody. It should have everything that you would want to know or know how to do. And the next thing I want to talk about, Shift, obviously the next version of Shift 2022. We've now got that off the ground. We started it last month. The good news is we have identified a project manager for Shift, and it's not me. I've been around Shift. Envision Shift as a lake or a pond. I've been around it. I may have had my fishing pole out, but this person's been in it. He's got his boots on. He's knee deep in it, maybe even waist deep in it. He's been in it through the last 2 iterations. He's never shy, but somehow in this virtual environment, he's become pretty fond of the raise your hand feature. It's a good thing we're meeting virtually here today, because if we were in the auditorium, he'd be sitting in the very back row, corner seat, and we have to wait for him to walk all the way up to the stage. But I would like to welcome my good friend, or at least our good friend, at least my good friend from District 10. Turn it over to Jason Blackburn. Jason, you're out there?
Yes, sir. I appreciate that, Mikhail. That was good. I wasn't expecting that, so it's different. I'll try to be brief. Basically, like Mikhail said, we're getting started. We're a little behind due to a few kind of issues that we've had over the last year, but we're in first gear and we're getting ready to go to third. I think we're going to skip a few gears, so by next month we should be in sixth or 10th or whatever you want to say. But the biggest kind of news that the two things that want to kind of relay to everyone today. And I'm going to attempt to do this. God, I hope I can do this properly because I'm on a iPad. Hope everybody can see that. Is our schedule. We finally have kind of the beginning of the schedule at the very least. We kind of got it approved. And as you can see there, the two first dates that we concern ourselves with is the whole chaff, that's new projects and whatnot. The deadline the kind of the cutoff date for chaffs is going to be March the 12th. So that's a lot of time for everybody to meet with their people and make sure to get these projects in. Jahan is definitely approving those. I know I've put in 3 this week alone, so things are moving. And then the next date is the sponsorship. As you can see, that'll start tentatively March 1st, and then it'll run March and April. So there's a 2-month window there for everybody with ads, MPOs, everybody kind of schedule and get their meetings in to get these sponsorships going. As for the rest of that, that's subject to change as we move forward. As you can see at the main top there, it says draft timeline, and there's a revision date. And chances are, if you've been around it for a little bit now, you'll see, that things do change. But those two dates, the chaff creation and the sponsorship, are just going to stay as of right now. Then after that, we've got the group leads, so to say. And hopefully everybody can see this. Of course, for Shift 2022, Mikhail is our planning director. He's in control of whatnot. I'm going to be the coordinator or manager. So any questions, any complaints or whatnot, be sure to send me an email or get a hold of me somehow. Always happy to discuss things. But basically, here's a list of kind of our technical lead groups. As anyone may know, we try to improve with each iteration that we do, and unfortunately, due to circumstances, we didn't have kind of the typical feedback meeting discussions that we would normally have. So we've kind of got these groups together, and they are just starting in the process. So basically, if anyone out there has any thoughts, say in regards to asset management. That's our roads and bridges, kind of that paving score or bridge problems. If somebody thinks, hey, this would be good if we could include this, reach out to these leads that you see here. There's their email addresses. And this will be sent out after the meeting. Get Jacob to send this to everybody. But reach out to those group leads and say, hey, I have this idea. Or, and let's go from there. They're definitely looking for ideas. And it's basically, there's no guarantees that if anybody says we need to change this, that it'll happen. But we'll definitely look at it, discuss it, and if it's a worthwhile, it's something that we can do, in the next coming months, we will definitely consider doing it. I think at the bottom there, I've got Daniel List as well. He's kind of taking care of all of our data and whatnot. Don't have his email, just to put it out there. Nobody bug Daniel. We're getting ready to bog him down as is. I know he won't tell anybody no, I don't think, but let's let him do his stuff if you don't mind. So there's Liz, and I guess with that being said, that's pretty much it. Hopefully chaff is going to be better this time than it was last time, and that's our plan is a continual improvement, and there will be some minor changes as we move along as things are discussed and issues come up. But as soon as those come out, those changes are made, I'll definitely let everybody, here know, here's where we stand, here's this change, and here's why. I think that's it, Mikhail. So I don't know if it'll go back to you or if it's going to go on to Steve or whoever.
Is that all you
Yep.
had, Mikhail? Thanks, Jason.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Jason. Yep. Next up, I think is Steve. Jacob.
Okay, yeah, I've got the shift stuff. Yeah, I'll send that out at the end of the meeting. I'll get that list from. You might already send. I think he actually emailed that to me this morning, so I'll send that out. But nice job, guys. The next on the list, we're going to be talking about the PIP and long range plan and STIP and all that. So to kind of give you an intro to the branch in general, kind of give you an idea of who's doing what and how we even operate. I thought it'd be good to have Steve Ross. We met as a committee and we ended up putting Mr. Steve Ross on here. He's been with the Transportation Academy for 18 years. And the last 14 he's been the branch manager of strategic planning. Prior to KYTC, he worked 12 years for Northeast Railroad Conrail, primarily in structures. And he's got a bachelor in civil engineering from UK, and he's a licensed PE in 6 states. I didn't know that. And he lived in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky with his wife for 30 years, Lynette. They have one adult son, Roger, who is a professional musician in Nashville. Please welcome Mr. Steve Ross.
Thank you, Jacob. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
For all the new folks out there, I'm just going to start off, like Jacob said, with a brief overview of the strategic planning branch. Okay, this branch, it's made up of 3 teams: quarter planning team, MPO team, and the statewide planning team. The first one, the quarter planning team, conducts and oversees transportation planning studies. It is led by Steve DeWitt, and he'll speak a little later this morning on one of those studies, the statewide corridor plan. Beth Neiman and Matt Lawson are also on the quarter team. Okay, the second team, the MPO team, coordinates activities and documents between the state and the 9 metropolitan areas, the ones having populations greater than 50,000. Thomas Witt leads this team and has team members with him: Barry House, Tanya Higdon, and Sadie Middleton. Okay, the third team, the statewide planning team, is responsible for the Cabinet's long-range statewide transportation plan and also the public improvement program or plan. Tanya Higdon, in addition to being on the MPO team, she has responsibilities to update these documents, and we'll speak on that in more detail in a few minutes. The statewide team, it works with the area development districts who help us meet federal requirements for public involvement and project identification and prioritization. Jacob Huber is our ad coordinator. Besides being a great moderator, he'll be speaking in a few minutes on our 5-year update of the Rural Consultation Report. Jahan Khan, who Jason mentioned earlier, he's on the statewide team too, and he maintains the CHAF database of unscheduled needs. Okay, the strategic planning branch conducts these statewide planning meetings on a quarterly basis, and it's mainly to gather everybody together, all of the ads, the MPOs, the highway district offices, central office, to get us all in one place, even if it's a virtual place, so that we can improve our communication and coordination. Once a year, we dedicate a meeting to Title VI training. For the past couple of years, that has been our October meeting. Vincent Thomas from the Cabinet's Office of Civil Rights will be speaking on Title VI a little later this morning, and we welcome him back. Given the social unrest across the country, especially here in Kentucky with the death of Breonna Taylor, this is a timely topic. And we probably haven't seen such a divide in the country since the 1960s. So I will say that recently there have been some very good civil rights learning opportunities that I want to bring to your attention. About a month ago, AASHTO held a joint policy conference, which included a session titled Systemic Racism and Transportation. It got into the many inequities related to transportation and transportation planning over the years. The presentation was recorded and the link included in a recent AASHTO planning newsletter that I sent out to everybody. I'll share that again with Jacob so he can include it with all the other information after the meeting's over. Mentioned in that presentation was a 1997 PBS documentary titled Divided Highways. Some of you may have seen this. It's available on YouTube. It's about the building of the interstate highway system in the 1950s, and gets into all the good as well as the bad aspects of that huge public works project, especially related to dividing and destroying vibrant communities that were populated by low-income and minority populations. Finally, I would like to look back a few months ago to the passing of civil rights activist and icon Representative John Lewis. Representative Lewis was with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at his I Have a Dream march on Washington and was the youngest speaker at that event. Representative Lewis was beaten and nearly killed later on a march in Selma, Alabama, in what's become known as Bloody Sunday. This was 1965, just 1 year after the passing of the Civil Rights Act. His memorial service was broadcast live on TV and had speakers including 3 past presidents, and is a civil rights lesson in itself. If you missed it, I would say it was very moving and worth taking the time to go back and watch, and you can find it easily online. So with that, I thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Jacob.
All right, thanks, Steve. Good overview. Give them good timely remarks, like you say, Title VI. And that one's going to be at 11:30, so we'll keep those guys on track. And the next speaker, Miss Tanya Higdon, she'll talk about the PIP long range, and then we'll touch briefly on the STIP. And I can make the rural consultation thing pretty quick, so we'll probably go, Tanya, probably give you like 10 minutes or something. So let me read Tanya's bio here. Miss Tanya Higdon has a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and a Master's of Science from UK. And she worked in the private sector nearly 11 years. Water Resources obtained her PE in 2005, and she started the cabinet in 2009. Over the years, she's gained a wealth of knowledge in transportation planning. Like Steve said, she's on the statewide team. She's been on the corridor team. She's on the MPO team. So she's got bits and pieces. She's helping everybody. And she's helped oversee the first 2 rounds of the district transportation plan, managed 2 previous statewide public involvement plans, which she's going to touch on, as well as the most recent version of the long range plan, statewide transportation plan. Ms. Higdon is an Advanced Leadership Academy alumni, like Mikhail, and received the Tylen Smither Leadership Award in 2013. She also received the AASHTO President's Transportation Award as part of the Data Needs Analysis study team. She's actively working on the current PIP update, and she'll be managing the next long-range plan for KYTC. And Tanya lives in Versailles, Kentucky, with her husband, David, and their 2 active children, Ashley and Luke, and their family dogs. I know Tanya's big into dog grooming and all that kind of thing. So without saying anything else, Miss Tanya Higdon. And let me know if you need me to help share that presentation, Tanya. Welcome. I think you're muted. You might be muted, Tanya. I can't. Can anybody hear her? I can't hear her yet. Let me try to turn you off. I've got control of all the people here. Let me see if I can.
You look to be unmuted now. Try it now.
Yeah, okay, see if you're unmuted now.
No, I don't hear anything.
And you can try to chat in the chat box, maybe if I can help. The only other thing I know is maybe unplug and plug back in your.
Looks like she just
microphone.
left. Might be trying to log
Okay.
back on.
So maybe when she rejoins, she'll have audio. And if not, if we don't get to these subjects this go around, I think it's still kind of a work in progress. We still got to finish it, but we can give the updates at the January STP meeting too. So we'll see. We'll give her a minute here and see if she can get logged on.
Or
That's
Jacob,
good.
if you wanted to go ahead and do your part, you'll be maybe she can get logged on after you give your give the updates you're going to.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can talk about the rural consultation survey for a minute. Let's go ahead and do that. That'll give her a couple minutes to, if she chimes in, I'll just tell her I'll wrap it up quick. Okay, let's see. The rural consultation survey. I don't know if you guys have met me or not. I've met several of you, but I've worked in KYTC since 2009. I worked in the consultant industry for 4 years, and I've worked in design, construction, and planning. I graduated Center College UK in 2005, and I live in Frankfort with my wife Sarah, daughter Willow, and son Sage and Oakley. The rural consultation survey. The only reason really I'm on here is to help round out the other subjects here that we include. So let me see if I can share my screen with the rural consultation survey. Really, I don't even know if I need to share my screen. It's every 5 years, the cabinet is asked by the federal government wants us to get some feedback from the rural transportation committees. And so we send out a survey. So about last week, I sent out 540 postcards. And the postcards, it's an online survey, but I just put a link on the postcard for them to try and log on to the internet. And if they need a paper copy, they just call me, and we'll mail out a paper copy if they don't have access to the internet or something spotty. And then I'm giving everybody till December 30th, as long as we have a report in by, I think it was February 21st or the Friday before that, if it's a Saturday. I think the federal government's good with that requirement. So that's kind of the status. There's 25 questions. It basically asks for feedback from the mayors, the judge executives in the rural communities, and other members that are on these rural transportation committees. And we'll consolidate everybody's responses. Probably, want to get them back in January. Probably take a week or something and get those back out to the area development districts. We're asking for feedback on our communication process and also on how the ad planners are doing. If there's questions or concerns that we have from the rural communities, it is a neat way to get input around the state. So that's out right now, and a link to the survey. I emailed that out to most of the rural mayors and judge executives, and then it was a Microsoft Forms link. I don't know if many people have done that Microsoft Forms, but that's been kind of neat. It's kind of like SurveyMonkey, and you just have to log on. One tidbit that a lesson learned, I guess, was Eunice Holland at a Kentucky River ad. She said somebody I guess had told her that they opened it on their phone, and I thought I had condensed everything to one email address, but it showed all 540 people on the email, so they scrolled for about an hour to get to the actual link. But if anybody's doing those surveys and things, it does help to have one consolidated link. I was thinking I did that, but it expanded somehow. So lesson learned there. That's about all I have. If Tanya, did you get back on? Let me check. If she's not back on, I'll try to share my screen or something to fill a little more time. And then...
I can hear everybody.
Hey, I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just finished with the rural consultation service, so we're done there. So now the rest of the time is you, Tanya. 10 minutes or whatever you need there. Let me know if I need to help share the screen.
Well, I think you're going to have to because, sorry everyone for technical difficulties, my laptop's microphone connection does not work. So
Bummer.
I don't normally, so it's not really been an issue that I've recognized. So I apologize for that. But if everybody can see me, then if Jacob's kind enough to share his screen, then I'll just say next if that's okay with you, and we'll just move forward. So apologize for the delay, everybody. I just go ahead and hit the version that goes to the slideshow. You're probably more familiar with that than most people are.
Okay, does that look good? Can you see that?
Awesome. I see it. Hopefully everybody else does as well.
Yeah, just say next to whatever whenever you're ready to move.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Jacob. Thanks, everybody, for this technical glitch. I know that you all have been so excited about this with such great anticipation that you've been eagerly awaiting the unfolding of the 2020 draft PIP update, and I am very happy to say that we are on track to release this document before the end of October, and it'll be running through the 1st of December, 45-day review period. This effort will include public involvement survey, and it'll be on our website with a link, and that'll be forthcoming. We'll also be reaching out to the public with various methods for public outreach as discussed within the PIP document itself. So there's lots of things there that would help everyone. You want to hit the next slide there, Jacob? Please. Thank you. I know everyone's familiar with this image. They've seen it before in some form or fashion, but everything really does come back to a cyclical effect, project life cycles, and we reach the public in various aspects. Can you click the next slide, Jacob? Thanks. As you can see, that particular life cycle effect is also shown here, and this is more in regards to the public outreach efforts and that input that we really are desiring to seek. That's the whole process in and of itself, is to get that knowledge-driven, broad-based input. And we use that through our long-range statewide transportation plans, through our statewide transportation improvement program, as well as our consultation for our projects. So this is just a continual cycle in all different areas that we apply. Next, Jacob. Again, similar image here, except in this scenario, we are discussing those particular political and public and technical input sources. As you notice here with the political, we're talking state, local, and national leadership. The point of that is to give us guidance and technical support. We're also talking, guidance and, yes, technical support. And then with finances, and then with the technical input component, that's going to be from our federal and state agencies, and as we list several of those there ourselves internally as our technical expertise, and in the transportation bills and how those we apply those new bills. Technical input, we're talking about analysis of information from current data, the future conditions, impacts on anticipated improvements within the system. Also with public input, we are talking about getting information from our community, from all forms of users, and those can also include citizens, not just those listed, well, they are all listed here, but in addition to citizens that may be affected by those proposed improvements, the people in the right-of-way, if you will. In addition to that, we're trying to develop community goals and understand those issues related to that community. Next, Jacob. I'm sure some of you might have seen this image before. Basically, this one is we call it also the 5 I's of public involvement. And these are key steps in the process. And this is, again, reiterating that public outreach and the times in which we will reach the individuals and gain knowledge and understanding of what we're dealing with. The public involvement goal here is to provide public opportunity to aid in the identification of transportation needs and priorities. Also, it's to plan for and how to meet those needs and priorities, and to develop and deliver those transportation projects. So all of this is part of that. And today we're going to focus more in on that first one, the identify, invite, inform, and involve, and improve the system as we go. Next, Jacob. As part of that identify, we're talking about those populations and trying to understand those traditionally underserved populations. In order to do that, we started off with the Kentucky Demographic Overview, and this is one piece of that puzzle. It helps us have a better understanding of our community as a whole, statewide level to county level, what we're made up of. We use the Census Bureau data. And the data that you're going to see here today is really 2014 to 2018 American Community Survey 5-year estimate data. And we use this to move forward, but we first have to understand our past. So as you see in this particular slide, we're talking about data trends with population. As the numbers as those little bar charts are identified for each county, that just shows an increase in those particular time frames for each county. You also see the asterisk there. That indicates there's been a continual decrease in population over that time. Next, Jacob. Okay, so we're going to run through some tables and some figures, but we're going to do it really quickly because I know there's a lot of information here, and we really are in a short time frame to address this. So I'm just going to pick out a couple little key notes that I was able to quickly identify upon review. We started to assess this, and in years past, we were assessing the data in terms of total population and how that broke out for the top 5 counties. In some scenarios, we're also doing it in a different approach, and I'll get to that on the next slide. In this particular slide, as you can see, Jefferson County is really the top county in the state when it comes to total population for the majority of scenarios. And all but the Hawaiian and Island Pacificer race really has Jefferson County as the lead, and it's just interesting to note that Warren County is the first in that particular race. We also note that the population is 354 people there. American, and it's also interesting to note that the American Indian and American Alaskan, as well as the Hawaiian Island Pacificer, have a very, very low percentage of our overall population as a state. Next slide, please. Thanks. So this, again, is a different view of that data. We're now looking at data in terms of highest percentage of that population within the county. Again, both of them are counties, but one was just total percentage of population, and this is highest percentage of that population within the county. And if you notice here, it looks a little different. And I think that's something to note when you're assessing this kind of data, is to kind of give it a different perspective, to kind of pull out those different views. One point that seemed quite interesting to me was the Hispanic and Latino ethnicity and race. And I will make a note here as well. If you look at the bottom, we separated out the not Hispanic or Latino and put them in with their own group with all the races. And that is something that the Census Bureau recommends and Kentucky State Data Center recommended, and that was because you don't want an ethnicity to potentially be counted more than once, and we want to make sure our total population numbers are consistent throughout. So that's why there's these little extra notes, if you will, to define that more clearly. But I did think it was interesting that Shelby County has 10% of their population being Hispanic and Latino. Next slide, please. Okay. Moving on, next slide, we're talking about population by age, and I'm sorry that I could get into this and talk a whole lot longer, but I'm trying to really keep it condensed for everyone's benefit. Here we're talking about the different areas. We define a particular age group and give them a time for years associated with that age group. What's interesting is, and I guess not really surprising, but the majority of our population within those particular 4 age groups are adults between age 25 to 64. And we decided to give them the underserved population needs with the elderly population. We went ahead and with the help of Jacob and Sadie, we've done some additional in-depth assessment of the elderly population. Let's go ahead, Jacob, and go to the next slide, please. As you can see on this slide, we're taking that elderly population and we're breaking it down. And you can see here that, again, that scenario where we're looking at things in terms of percentage of the county, and then we're looking in terms of total population of that county. Again, this is a graphical representation. That particular image up there at the top left corner is a graphical representation of the table that you saw previously for the elderly population. And with the imagery, again, pictures worth 1,000 words, you can really see some interesting things evolving here, especially that bottom left corner over there of the high percentage of elderly population. And it looks like that's, which district is that? Is that District 2, some District 2, some District 1? So anyway, I thought that was kind of a keynote and interesting. Do you mind next slide, Jacob? Okay, this slide's about population income, and we broke this down in various ways. As you can see on the left, we're looking at 2 different components. One is the lowest percentage of population below the poverty level, and then we're going from the lowest to the highest in that one. And then the next one is the highest percentage of population below poverty level, and we're going from that highest percentage of that poverty level and going down from there. So you can see that Clay County has a very high percentage of their population that's below poverty level. Also, with the 2 tables below that, with regards to total population, you can see how those numbers are different. And so you've got the way to compare both. And it's nice to have that balance. And you notice there Jefferson County, again, has the highest total population that's below poverty level. And again, they have the highest total population of the counties in the state. On the right, you can also see the median household incomes and what a disparity there is between Oldham County's median household income at $97,000 and Wolfe County's median household income at $22,000. So they have a lot of a lot of differences going on within our state. Next slide, Jacob. This one I think would be a little bit more transportation related and maybe be of some additional interest to some. This particular slide, you can see here how we're breaking down driving and the fact that our state, the majority of our population drives alone. And I don't guess anyone's really too surprised about that. I still feel like it's a little surprising that 84% of Jefferson County still drives alone, and it's not overly different from our other counties. I will say it's kind of also a thing to keep in mind when you're talking about alternate modes and you're looking at public transportation. When you go to the next table below that, you can see that Jefferson County has the largest percent-wise of their population that is using alternate modes of transportation and public transit. Then we also have the commute time, and I think it's interesting too that Elliott County, almost 40 minutes each way, they are spending their time driving to and from work. And that is work-related commuting. If you take those tables and you look to the right here about the housing units, we have to start out with the total occupied housing. We have to then go down there to those that have no vehicles. So you would assume that there's alternate modes of transportation going on for people who have no vehicles. But what's kind of interesting too, if you see the Jefferson County, there are 29,000, almost 30,000 people that do not have vehicles. But then you look on your left here in public transportation, and only 10,000 of those people in Jefferson County are actually using public transportation. So what's the other 20,000 people doing? Are they potentially able to be reached, and how can we really effectively address their needs? Next slide. Language spoken at home. That's quite interesting too. Our state's got its own unique scenarios, and language other than English only, we have a higher percentage there in some areas, especially Warren County and Fayette County. English only, I mean, I think most people would assume that that's our primary language, and most people in Kentucky speak that language only. If you look to the right, there's low literacy populations, and I think that's still interesting because Jefferson, we're talking total population again, Jefferson County is the first, and percentage-wise, that's not really very high for the total population of Jefferson County, but to think in terms of individuals, 16,000, almost 17,000 people have less than a ninth grade education, and I think that's still concerning for us as a state. You go to Owsley County, you see that 19% of their population has the same scenario. Next slide, Jacob. Okay, last, I'm trying to wrap it up for you guys. This is a graphical representation of the information we just went with regards to underserved populations. As you can see here, we're breaking this down, but not too surprising, the areas with a higher population tend to have those underserved populations that are in need, and they cluster there in the Louisville area, the Northern Kentucky area, and the Central Kentucky Fayette County area, as Bowling Green. You have a couple little outliers, not too surprising. We have the issue with the highest percentage of their population below poverty level there in Eastern Kentucky. Still a battle that we're still fighting, and transportation hopefully can help in some regards to that. With what we're doing now with SHIFT and other areas, we're trying to meet needs there from that approach, and as well as the lowest median income in those areas. And next slide, Jacob. Just want to thank everybody. Special thanks to Jacob for his help with the graphing. Sadie with her help with the data. She's our intern, and she's done an excellent job. And Deanna Mills for helping with the conversion of some of these images that we've had and trying to really help me and work with me to get those up to speed for the next iteration. And we also want to thank our area development districts, our planning partners here, the MPOs, and our highway district offices. You will continually reach out to the public in various aspects. You all participate with us in those. So we just know that you're a very critical part of this whole planning process and the whole public outreach, which makes it all come together. And if you have any questions, obviously reach me, Steve Ross, or Mikhail Pelfrey. And I just want to thank you all for your time and wish you all a great day. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. Good job. Let's see. Long range plan, STEP. Do we need to mention anything about those two things? Tanya or
Long
Mikhail?
range plan. That's cool. Good point. trying to expedite the process here. Long range plan, we're planning that in 2021. We are going to obviously complete our public involvement plan process and move into that. So, and the STIP, I think it's going to be good to go towards the end of the year. That's what I'm understanding right now.
Sound good, Mikhail? I think you're still on there. Might be muted. That all sound good, Mikhail? If you're still on there. Okay, let's see. Next, Steve DeWitt, are you on here? I might have muted you too.
I'm here.
So it's about
Can you hear
10.
me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's 10:37. What do you think here for a break? You want to just come back at like 10:50 or something? Will that give you guys enough time, or do you need a few more minutes?
Absolutely. We don't need that much time.
Okay, so 10:50. If everybody's okay with coming back at 10:50, take a break, do some yoga or stretch around or whatever, get a snack, go for a quick walk or something, and we'll see you back here at 10:50. All right, guys. I'll share my welcome screen here for the break. How about that? See you guys. Also, if anybody has any questions, type them in that chat box. We can talk about them when we come back. But I think everything has been pretty well addressed up until now. Daniel Holker's email is on there, so we'll mention something about that. But other than that, I'll see you guys back at 10:50.
Hey Steve, this is Johnny. Can you hear me? Just want to make sure my microphone works well.
Yep, can hear you, Johnny.
Okay, good.
I'll do the same thing. This is Ken. You hear me okay?
I can hear you, Ken.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, it's 10:50. I got 10:50. So break's over. Sorry. Let's see. The only questions I got in the chat box were from Mikhail. He said, sorry, because of COVID, my children's daycare is closed this week, and he only heard his name, but he didn't hear the question. So I feel your pain there, Mikhail. The only thing we were talking about was if we wanted to mention anything else about the long-range plan or the STIP. And I think we'll probably know more in January, was kind of what we decided to go ahead and move on, if that's okay. Can you hear me now, Mikhail? Are you back on? I'll mention it again maybe in a couple minutes. I hear one of my kids crying now in the distance. Okay, so let's see. Also, I talked to Tanya over the break, and she said the same thing pretty much, that we should be able to see some public involvement plans, some survey results come January. And So we'll have more updates and that kind of thing at the January 20th CP meeting. And I wanted to say thanks to Tanya. I know she's juggling a lot over there. Thanks, Tanya, for all your hard work and your efforts there. And I know you're helping the MPO team and the statewide team getting those projects together. So speaking of juggling projects, our next speaker is Mr. Steve DeWitt. He leads the strategic planning corridor team. And for KYTC, and he acts as a liaison for districts 3, 6, 7, and 10. And he's a 2013 graduate of Purdue University and initially worked in Kentucky as a consultant. He's worked at the cabinet since 2018. So I'll go ahead and read Ken and Johnny's bios too, because I think the three of you guys were just tag teaming this, I believe, right, Steve? Steve, can you hear me? Steve?
Yes, yeah.
Let me read
Sorry.
the other guys here.
Yeah, go for it.
Steve, I know Steve's got, 30-some projects that you're kind of juggling too, so managing that quarter. That's what Michaela used to do, is what I learned when I came on. And so Steve's kind of doing that now for us. And 30-some projects, I think there's 30 studies or something going on. The statewide corridor thing they're going to talk about is one of them. Okay, so let's see. Ken Kaltenbach is also going to talk during this one. He's a senior vice president of the Cordino Group in Louisville. He's got 48 years of transportation planning and modeling experience, 44 years of them with Cordino. He's a licensed PE in 9 states, holds bachelor's and master's degrees in civil engineering from UK. He's developed travel demand models, traffic forecasts, transit ridership estimates, transportation studies for Kentucky, Florida, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Virginia, California, North Dakota, and Texas. His modeling experience, TransCAD, TP+, QVoyager, among others, languages, GIS, DK, R, Python, Fortran, C++. So he speaks a lot of computer type language. He's worked on statewide models, Florida, Kentucky, Michigan, Indiana, Virginia. And he's got contracts, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Florida Department of Transportation, District 4, and the Richmond, Virginia Transportation Planning Organization. Ken's currently the consultant team's project manager for the KYTC statewide corridor plan. And then Mr. Johnny Hahn, he's got his PhD. He's also a licensed engineer. He's the technical vice president with the Cordino Group in Indianapolis, Indiana. He's got 17 years experience in multimodal transportation modeling or planning, travel demand modeling, and transportation engineering. Johnny's a nationally recognized expert in developing the best travel demand modeling methods in terms of urban size, community needs, and in applying big data in transportation planning. He's managed a wide variety of high-profile projects for many state DOTs, MPOs, Midwest and East Coast. In Kentucky, Johnny's currently the consultant team's technical project manager on the statewide corridor plan. He's also project manager on the ongoing downtown Frankfort traffic study. In past years, he's been heavily involved in updating the Kentucky statewide traffic model with Scott Thompson and them, and developing regional models for KYTC District 9, Owensboro, MPO, conducting district transportation plan, 6-year plan, CHAF projects modeling to support SHIFT. And Johnny earned his PhD in civil engineering statistics, major in civil engineering, minor in statistics from North Carolina State University. So kind of long bio, sorry about that, but I gave my quickest radio read. So thank you guys for being on here today. And Steve DeWitt, I think you're going to start, so take it away.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Can you see the presentation okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. And here we go. We're here to talk, give an update on Lincoln, Kentucky, also known as Kentucky Statewide Corridor Plan, which we are blazing through to completion. You'll see the schedule here in a little bit, but this has been a wonderful project to work on, and we've got a wonderful team working on it. This morning, I'm going to start off doing the easy part, just talking about what the cabinet wanted out of this and what we're asking the other smart people in the room to do. And then we'll go through our stakeholder and public engagement piece and talk about the study network, our 2 tiers of screening, prioritization, talk about corridor visioning and where this all ends up, and then the next steps from there and how this kind of folds into Tanya's efforts to update the next long-range plan. Our project team for this included representatives from KYTC central office, as well as district offices, MPOs and ads, and then of course our consulting team led by Corradino, but also with WSP, C2 Strategic Communications, and then Third Rock integrated in Corn Island as subs, especially for environmental and other tasks. The goals of this study, when we first set out to do this, we've got 5 of them, and they're a little lengthy, but I'll try and distill them down a little bit. We wanted to look at the major, city-to-city connections that exist in the Commonwealth and identify those that have the greatest potential for improvement for safety, travel time, reliability, linkage, things like that. So we wanted to look at how they're doing now and how they could be improved in the future. And to take those corridors, divvy them up into more manageable, logical sections, and then on the best scoring from our 2 tiers of scoring, come up with a vision for those corridors on what they should look like in 2030 and 2045. How they should be constructed, from what end should we go to the other, things like that. Basically allowing project teams and the cabinet in the future to have a path forward for a lot of these very, very important corridors, so that we're not hamstrung by funding and only being able to think a mile or 2 at a time as funds become available. There's at least a vision on the ground that we can work toward a conclusion. We wanted to also gather and utilize some input from key stakeholders that we called grass tops. You'll hear that term a little bit, and our planning partners. And then to make all of this put together and not make it sound like gibberish on the other side, so that it actually is straightforward and can be used, because like Mr. Ballinger said, we really want to avoid planning studies that just sit on the shelf. We want them to be useful going forward. And so this kind of puts our schedule and our methodology into a graphical form, where we started off at a high level. What do we want out of this? We took all the roads in Kentucky and put them into a network, and from there we decided what we were actually going to study. And this was basically arterials and above, and things that had logical connections. And so we put all those into a big pot, and we took some data from them and shuffled them out, and we got 52 of these corridors, which you'll see here in a little bit. From there, we did a basic needs-based screen on those, looking at safety, mobility, and accessibility. So the ones that had the greatest needs were the ones that moved forward. And then we kind of pruned those down a little bit. We segmented them, and the top 25 corridors moved on. They were then segmented. I guess it was top 26 technically. They were segmented into 45 segments. And right now we're in the midst of our 2nd tier screening, where we're looking at more safety, more mobility, accessibility, but also we're bringing in some of the other familiar performance metrics that we've had before, including pavement and bridge condition. These are being run through Tretis to look at jobs created, and as well as benefit cost. We score them again. The top 20 get put in the list. We give them a vision going forward. We're still working out how those get put out to the public. And then we'll have a really slick report to look at. We've got kind of little scoping documents for each corridor already created. The plan is to have a really nice GIS-based website where you can click on each corridor and see what's going on there, and then it's ready to be used as a tool for the cabinet in the next long-range plan and putting together future highway plans. We tried to make this consistent with SHIFT, thinking about the same things, but it is still different. We're looking at different things. It's not quite just a prioritization screen. It's a scheme. It's looking at needs, looking at benefit costs, but doing it on instead of projects on a bigger scale and trying to be a little bit more holistic about it. So as you can see, in the first tier, it was really kind of safety, congestion, accessibility. We kind of made a new accessibility metrics that we can maybe bring into Shift in the future. And then in the second tier, it really resembles Shift, but like I said, it's has different data elements as part of it. Looking at the schedule, we kicked this off in about this time last year. We've been working diligently through the pandemic trying to get all of this stuff done. We're going to have a meeting about the results of that tier 2 screen and try and select which of those corridors are going to get visioned, if you will. We're going to have that before Thanksgiving. And we're looking at